So, if you haven't read it before, Deborah Dyson's 2008 children's book, The Pout-Pout Fish, is a charming tale about the power of kindness to turn a frown upside down. And it's probably expected from a 30-page book that has been stretched into an hour-and-a-half feature-length film. This animated adaptation pretty dramatically expands upon the story, but does it maintain the original's charm and wholesome message? I have seen it, so let's talk about it. So to answer that question, this film adaptation, I think, is fine, and I do think is like a worthy adaptation that, for the most part, keeps like the original simple message. Well, I think definitely lacking the quality or just like storytelling depth of many other like recent animated movies. The Pout-Pout Fish may still have enough like wholesome charm to dispel the dreary wearies of younger viewers. Now, swimming in like an entertainment sea populated with big fish like Disney or Pixar or DreamWorks or Illumination, the Pout-Pout Fish seems destined to be overlooked. I think on the surface, it is, at least to me, a bit reminiscent of like other underwater adventures like Finding Nemo or Shark Tale, but unfortunately, often feels more like a cheap knockoff than an equal. This movie feels kind of like the type of animated film that a parent might stumble upon on Netflix or YouTube and put on to entertain a bored child, rather than something that I think warrants the expensive price of the theatrical experience. That being said, and so that you don't think that I am myself too much of a pout-pout kind of person, I do actually think there is some charm in like this film's just simplicity, and there are occasional moments, I think, such as a fairly exciting third act climax, where the film does venture into like bigger and like a more dramatic scope. But for most of the runtime, it is a pretty simple story that is just brought to life with animation that is more like passable than impressive. Now, the question of being like a faithful adaptation seems a little bit silly when talking about a 30-page book written for toddlers. Still, this adaptation does keep, I think, many of the characters from the book, but offers an entirely new story and adventure for them to embark on. I think not all the story ideas are well conceived or welcome, and more on that in just a moment. But I think in some ways, the invented story actually improves upon the message of the book. In the original book, the Pout-Pout Fish basically floats around being glum until a pretty stranger fish randomly shows up and gives him a kiss on the lips, leading him to also go around kissing other sea creatures, which, let's be honest, is kind of weird. But in this adaptation, that smooch has been swapped out for just more applicable acts of kindness and the golden rule of treating others for how we ourselves would hope to be treated. And I think it is a very endearing message, and I think one with more positive application than encouraging kids to go back to school and become so-called kiss fishes. And perhaps I think understandable given this book's listed 1 to 3 year old reading age, the Pout-Pout Fish is aimed at a slightly younger audience than most theatrically released animated films, probably landing somewhere in the target age of 5 to 8. My 11-year-old twin boys actually joined me for this screening, and they were good sports about it, and they liked it for the most part, but they definitely did push the utmost limits of the target audience. I will say though, despite aiming for a younger audience, the Pout-Pout Fish is not as squeaky clean as might be expected. There's nothing overly concerning for parents, and it is a safe PG rated story relative to most animated films, but there are several jokes and content elements that I think felt out of place in a film aimed at such a young audience. For example, there are some fish-inspired substitutes for profanity, such as characters that say things like "what the flip" or "every flipping time." And I didn't catch the last one is clearly due to the character's accent, but I think one character also says something along the lines of "bull shark." There's also a subplot featuring a trio of pink dolphins who are clearly inspired by Mean Girls, with some of the characters saying things like "stop trying to make Finn happen." And personally, I just really didn't like this part of the film. These image-obsessed dolphins admire the Pout-Pout Fish's lips, implying that it must be the result of some kind of cosmetic surgery, and make comments that he appears to be thirsty for a certain female fish and gives off stalker vibes. And I mean, all in all, it's still fairly tame as far as animated films go, but I do think it reflects a possible lack of clarity in just how much to age up the target audience relative to the source material. As far as content to consider, things going on the surface of it, for language, like I said, there are some fish-inspired swear word substitutes like "what the flip" or flipping time or "bull shark." You also have a character who says "oh my gosh." For violence, really nothing here either. You have some dolphins who like bare their teeth and bravely attempt to eat the protagonist, although ultimately they let them go. And like, while not violence, there are some like somewhat villainous cuttlefish that can have the like ability to hypnotize other fish, which may be like a little bit intense for younger viewers. For sexuality, like I said earlier, the only things that I noticed was you have those characters that accuse a male fish of being thirsty for a female fish and giving off stalker vibes. And maybe the only other kind of content things that come to mind, you do have one scene where a fish is zapped by the electric jolt of a jellyfish, which results in him kind of temporarily acting drunk. And you also have a character that mentions knowing a psychic. As far as themes, worldview, things going on beneath the surface, the Pout-Pout fish, I think, offers a very straightforward and like simple message just about helping those in need. Because the Pout-Pout fish, as a character, is distrustful of other fish and reluctant to get involved or delay his own journey to help those in need that he encounters along the way. In contrast, Pip, his upbeat sea dragon companion, chooses to see the good in everyone and believes that they should help those in need so that if ever they find themselves in a tight spot, others will come to their aid as well, which of course is exactly what happens at the end. And the simple but I think edifying message is obviously one that Christians can affirm and want to instill in their children. I think of Galatians 6:2, which says, share each other's burdens and in this way obey the law of Christ. And the film just provides several examples of characters helping those in need and in return inspiring others to come to their own aid. Now, I will add that if there is any part of the message of this film that may not be as agreeable to parents, is that this film largely swims upstream of like the stranger danger mindset, where caution toward unknown fish is shown to be wrong, and this a default posture of overwhelming trust, bordering on recklessness, is elevated as being good. And obviously, the message of seeing the good in all people is redemptive and welcome, but I think some parents may find like the connotation of trust all strangers, even those older than you, to be a little bit less so. So, in the end, The Pout-Pout Fish is not an awful film. I think its bright colors and like peppy characters should endear at least younger viewers. And I think while lacking the emotional depth of like other recent animated films, the movie still does have plenty of heart. It's not bad, it's just not particularly good, kind of ending up in the murky middle between being an above average streaming film or a below average theatrical movie. For parents with children who have already seen better recent releases like Hoppers or Goat, or just with younger kids who might need something just a bit simpler and like aged down, it is a fun enough story with a worthwhile message, but with plenty of fish in the sea, the Pout-Pout fish may be one that's best left put back into the ocean, at least until it eventually swims onto streaming. But hey, I would love to hear what you think. If you take your kid to this movie, don't be shy, jump into the comment section, let's have a conversation about it. If you haven't done so too, encourage you guys, subscribe to the channel, become a collider, got lots of other movie reviews, got our Faith in Pop Culture podcast, got interviews, just other fun stuff. Would love to have you guys be a part of that. But most of all, guys, thank you for watching, stay safe, and continue to collide with the world for Christ.